Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. We're getting the feeling like we've been in step with the zeitgeist a little too much over the last couple months, what with being in touch with the youngins talking about K-pop Demon Hunters and whatnot. So much like Ron Swanson when he broke the coffee machine in Parks and Rec because things were getting a little too chummy, we're planning on taking Pink's advice and starting a fight. Because like Clemenza said in The Godfather, these things got to happen every once in a while. Clears out the bad blood. So in this episode, which is number 220, we're firing off with another unpopular opinion that Van Hagar was a better band than Van Halen. I am your Uncle Ton, and with me, as always, to deal with the hate mail is the man who owns a signed T-shirt that was once worn during a concert by Sammy Hagar's guitar tech's assistant. He has been my partner in Idiocy for over 2 decades, and probably caught a case of gonorrhea just from touching his shirt. I give you the man they call Tim.
For shame, sir, for shame.
Oh, you know Sammy had himself a case of the
I thought you were talking about Rob Van Dam, baby. But no, it is Van
Rob
Hagar.
Van Dam had gonorrhea?
Well, maybe.
I mean, probably it's possible. Yeah, actually, it's more than likely.
Greetings and salutations, my friend. How are you?
You know,
Hello, babe.
I'm feeling
there
pretty
it
good.
Is. Ho, 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 ho. Ladies and gentlemen, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Coming right out the chute. One of the great first songs on an album.
That's on 5150, right?
That is the first thing you hear of the new Van Hagar.
I mean, what
is
better
Sammy
way?
And then Eddie coming right in and then just driving the living snot out of that song. And that song goes so fracking hard. I was listening to it in my backyard because I had to stain like the back stairs of our house.
Yes.
And I'm listening to that. I'm like, our neighbors must think I am like the most like freaking acid wash denim wearing person who I'm like, it's good. Like this is friggin' amazing stuff.
It is. 5150 OU812 for unlawful carnal knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just oh my God.
I listened to
the
all
Hagar run was unparalleled.
I listened to all of 5150 and OU812 while I was and Hackney Diamonds. That's how long it took me to stain the friggin' stairs. But oh my gosh, so good. I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing, sir?
I am, with it, kicking, all good, ready to get into it because this is. Are you
ready to get into it? You know, like a sex machine, moving it, grooving it.
Why'd you have to go there? Good Lord!
You mentioned James Brown, the pre-production meeting. So
I may have mentioned in the pre-production meeting. The peoples haven't heard this; they don't know what the reference. Yeah, okay, Rick. Okay, Rick. Good Lord Almighty! Look out, folks!
Now.
Oh God! Yeah, take a swig. Take a swig. Good God! I am excited about this topic because the Van Hagar era was quite formative and special to me. During my high school years, and Van Halen as a whole, as I got to through Columbia Records, got to experience the rest. I know.
Oh, you did that too, huh?
Going old school, baby. Give me a penny, I'll take the CD. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
but that is how I built up my Van
vinyl
Halen
on that
collection.
bad boy. I got all. That's where I got a good portion of my vinyl collection.
Oh, I bet.
12 records for a penny?
That was a hell of a deal.
It's Jorge.
Hell of a deal.
Uncle Jorge, who's Uncle Tito now. Like 5 people lived at my house. That
As Rocky's manager Mickey said, it's a hell of a fighter, kid. A hell of a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. But yes, I am excited to have this conversation, have this discussion, this debate, if you will.
If you will. So yes.
What is the premise, sir, that we're kicking off with here?
The premise here, and of course we're calling this unpopular opinions because you look online, a lot of people don't like to talk about this.
A lot of tomatoes going to be thrown our way.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Frack them. The premise here is that the Sammy Hagar era of Van Halen, a.k.a. Van Hagar, was a better band musically than the original Van Halen era with David Lee Roth as singer.
Yes.
Now, as the person who kind of served this up as a topic, because originally we had some other ideas for this show, and then, you know, the man they call Tim spent a good portion of his weekend, or all of his weekend and week, down in South America. I was like, hey, how about I come up with a topic and can carry the weight of this show? Basically,
what Uncle Todd is saying, by the way, just so you know, like, I am not seeing the sound wave. I'm not seeing the sound wave at the bottom here. Is that a bad thing?
I am. So I think we're good.
You're good. Okay.
Yeah. It's your discount, non VPN, internet connection.
I see. I am surfing without the shark. So
you are, which is, all right.
But yes, I'm excited to get into this and
moving it, doing it, like a sex machine.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
So I want to present a couple of caveats and disclaimers here, because I feel like this topic is fraught with tension, and I think for good reason. Like I don't know about you, and this is probably something I should have researched a little bit more, but it was mostly because I could not come up with a ready example or a comp for this that makes me think like I don't think it's happened. Another band that has had enormous success with a lead singer, then changed lead singers, and continued to have success. Now, whether you want to say it's the same level of success or whatever, but enough that it is worth mentioning. Like Journey with Steve Perry, whatever you think about Journey, they were great. And then Steve Perry left and Journey kind of just went away. If Guns N' Roses had lost Axl Rose, would they have still been around? Van Halen is kind of this unique example of a band that managed to change just one piece and continue onward and still had like a high level of success. And in some ways you might even say, equal, whatever, however you want to measure it. So there's a lot of kind of the Van Roth, Van Hagar, sort of thing going on. And a lot of people fall down on the idea of, of course, Hagar was an interloper and you're kind of a pariah in the Van Halen community, if not. So here I want to say, first and foremost, I want to pull a reverse Willie Shakespeare and allow me to say, I have not come here to bury David Lee Roth, but to praise him. OG Van Halen was and is a gold standard for rock and roll in the 1970s and early 1980s. Roth was a huge part of that. And I want to make sure I say that out front because I'm going to make an argument later on about Eddie Van Halen kind of being the centerpiece of this band. But Roth, it was not just a schmuck up there in spandex. Like he was a big part of the Van Halen sound with his aptitude for writing lyrics, which is something that I look at now and I'm like, those lyrics are pretty snappy. And I've heard some people say, oh no, they're deep. I'm like, I don't know about deep, but they're pretty snappy. They hang in your head and they're kind of quippy and all that. And that's great. His sometimes unusual vocal phrasing, which I think is worth pointing out because the way that he sang some of these songs is definitely not the way a lot of his contemporaries would have sung the same lyrics over the same music. And of course his larger than life presence on stage, which you can't ignore. That was always one of the big things was Dave was a showman. He was this and that and the other. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Except when you take it to the extreme, you wind up with Dave talking about his friggin' dogs on stage and twirling a baton that he then bashes himself in the face with. There's upsides and downsides, and overall, just too often in fandom, people have to elevate what they like by tearing down something else that other people like. And this is really friggin' true of Van Halen fans. The thing is, I don't want to tear down Roth. I just want to only point out the differences between him and Hagar when it's necessary. I don't want to try and downplay Dave because they were the OG. They were the originals. There is something to be said for coming first. And what comes after is either a copy or it's a, derivation of that. The fact is, the actual truth is that whoever was the lead singer of the band was, whether it was David Lee Roth, whether it was Sammy Hagar, whether it was Gary Sharon, whether it was friggin' me up there trying to howl that stuff. The show and the sound of Van Halen was primarily defined by Eddie, and that's it. As many other things were staples of the sound. For instance, Alex is constantly ringing cymbals in a lot of the songs, where it's like, I didn't know that cymbals could ring out for that period of time. Mm-hmm. Or his just drumming style, which he did have a drumming style that was kind of unique to him. I will say I don't feel that he belongs in the discussion of great rock drummers. I think he was good. He was not phenomenal for sure. Or Michael Anthony's high harmonies, which are a tremendous part of the Van Halen sound. It was really always about the guitar, which is reflected in the mix of most of their songs, because people talk about Jason Newsted getting kind of a raw deal on Injustice for All, where it's like you can't even hear the bass was basically like cut out of the mix. So it's lead, rhythm, guitar, and then drums, and bass is almost non-existent. Dude, Michael Anthony was Jason Newsted before Jason Newsted, because there's so many of these albums that you go back and listen to and you can barely hear the bass, like the actual bass guitar. There's times when like Eddie's rhythm guitar track or what he's doing kind of links in with the bass. There's so many times when the bass just gets forgotten, and it's because like Eddie's sound and what he's playing takes up such a ridiculous amount of sonic real estate, and it's justifiably so. Like, it's amazing what this dude is doing. You want to hear more of that. And there's only so much space, so it's like, well, I guess we can pull the bass way down. Like, don't miss it. So, I mean, you have that going on. So all of those caveats, do you have any other disclaimers that you feel you need to include in this? Because you're going to kind of wind between being the heel and joining me here. So how do you, is there anything else we need to disclaim before we get into the primary argument, sir?
I don't think so. I think you covered most of it. And to your point, the issue or the purpose of all of this is not to declare one the victor over the other, but I think to just talk about, I think, why maybe one front man, potentially resonates more than another, or, the positives of both and the negatives of both. I think the idea here is that, you and I both, for me at least, the one disclaimer I'll make is, my knowledge of Van Halen was very much built around the Van Hagar era. So I have an affinity toward that.
Yeah.
There will be a bias toward that. But nonetheless, over the years, especially in my late high school years into college years, through my, membership with Columbia House, I, acquired the remainder of the Van Halen, CDs and from the early Roth era, and, listened to them and definitely found, value and quality there. But there's a difference, and that difference cannot be ignored. And so I will just throw that out there, I guess, as a disclaimer, is that, yes, my fandom does tend to lean a little bit more to the Hagar side of things, but we will discuss further.
Yeah, no, that's an important inclusion, because our age does play a part in this. Like, we're 80s kids and into like kind of like our serious record buying time in the late 80s, early 90s, which David Lee Roth, famously his last album with Van Halen is 1984. So that was when I was 8. So yeah, that's a little bit early for me. Like, I was aware of kind of Jump and Panama a little bit, but yeah, Van Hagar kind of hit me at the point where I was really starting to be aware of, of different bands and kind of caught like that prime time of like absorbing musical influences. So yeah, that's definitely going to play a part for us, for sure. Yeah. Just the same way that for people were growing up in the 70s and early 80s and hitting that point when they're like, Van Halen 1 or Van Halen 2 comes out and you're like 15 years old, like, yeah, of course that's going to be the flag you're going to wave. I would not blame you. Like, if Van Halen 1 was the first like album that you bought, I would totally understand where you'd be like, Hagar is this and that and the other. Like, okay, I get it, because I can only imagine what it was like unwrapping Van Halen 1 and putting that on your turntable for the first time. Holy sweet good God.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, what, huh? My parents used to listen to Buddy Holly, and what is this? That sort of thing. So I get it. Okay, so now let's finally get into, now that we've disclaimed and we've done all the lawyerly crap here, why is Van Hagar better? And my contention is the biggest reason I think Van Hagar surpasses Van Roth, OG Van Halen, is that Eddie's playing and sound evolved and became a lot more interesting and added more layers in terms of songwriting. I think there is a lot to be said here for the fact that, like, Van Hagar would not have existed without Van Halen, Van Roth. Like, it, of course, yeah. Like, that's the natural progression of linear time. Like, that's how time flows, folks. Like, no shit, really. So yeah, I think there is a certain appreciation of where Eddie was, and then where he was when Sammy Hagar joined the band. And to me, like, that Eddie's playing there just felt a little bit different. And and there's something about that just clicks with me for whatever reason. Yeah, I think the early Van Halen stuff is fan-friggin-tastic. Like, you listen to friggin' Eruption or Dance the Night Away, or or anything off of 1984. Like, it's amazing. But there was something that, like, and specifically for me, like, I think for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was really like the apex of Van Halen fandom for me. That was when I was in high school. That was kind of like the apex of, like, you live and die by your favorite albums and bands, and that album, it hit me in a big bad way, and the playing on that to me was just sublime, and was amazing and so varied. And that's what really sells it for me, because the story of Van Halen, for all of the positives that you can mention about everyone else in the band, it's Eddie, man. Like, Eddie's guitar made all the difference. You put any other guitar player in this, and without the charisma and the innovation of Eddie Van Halen, it's just another California cover band.
Yeah.
I mean, does that sound like realistic or completely like off the rocker to you?
No, I think where I see, the Hagar era exceeding the Roth era is really around, how, I guess first to start with the musicianship and the composition that the band put forth, that I think, under Hagar, Van Halen, had evolved from a loose sort of, party driven hard rock band into a more sophisticated arena rock band. I think the songs they came out with, it wasn't a complete departure from what made them popular and famous in terms of, like, under Roth, there was a lot of party hedonistic sort of themes in their songs, and I don't think they completely went away from that with Hagar. I think there was still an element of that there, but what I do think existed with the Hagar era was that there was a level of introspection and a level of maturity at some levels with some of the music and some of the songs.
Yes.
And
I mean, just the fact that they actually had ballads. That was
like,
not a thing with Roth.
Songs like Dreams, Love Walks In, Right Now, all of those showed more advanced, kind of harmonic progressions that were not common in the Roth years. Eddie's keyboard integration was, more reflected in some of the music that was done under the Hagar era than in, the Roth era. We got a little bit of that towards the end in 1984, but it really continued through in 5150 and OU 812. And then there was more of kind of an instrumental balance. Like with Roth, Eddie's guitar kind of dominated. With Hagar, there was more, sort of musical democracy, that, Hagar's range allowed the band to write, in more keys and explore different textures. Alex's drumming, felt a little more polished and less chaotic. Michael Anthony's harmonies became more prominent in layered, melodic arrangements. And so I think from a musicianship and composition standpoint that, the band really evolved and became a little bit more mature that way than they did under Roth, where they were more of kind of a party band, if you will.
Which, I mean, reflects somewhat on the age too. Like you eventually get tired of doing the same stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I one of the things about AC/DC that I will always give them credit for, like I joke it's remarkable that they've managed to put out the same album now for like 40 years. And you know what? The thing is, though, it's a really friggin' good album. That they just, it's just rock in your face. They don't go for power ballads. They don't, whatever. They just punch you in the frackin' face with just rock and roll. Awesome. And that works for them. I mean, that's actually, that is the other example. I completely friggin' forgot about AC/DC as far as like changing lead singers and having continued success, because
that's true. Yeah.
They are the other example. However, they managed to change without really changing that much. There's a definite change between Bon Scott and Brian Johnson, but the evolution was more like acclimating to the new lead singer, as opposed to like Angus Young has just kind of been the same guitar player. And that's no slack on Angus Young. Like there is hundreds of thousands of guitar players who wish they were Angus Young, who wish that they could play like that. And even when they're like, oh, well, he doesn't do anything that great. It's like, yeah, but you wish you could be that recognizable. You wish you could play something that cool that's that simple. Like, yeah, go ahead and be one of these guitar wanks who puts out like an album every year and nobody listens to him. Angus Young goes out and plays in front of 80,000 people. Whatever you're into.
Yeah.
But obviously it resonates.
Yep.
Eddie, was evolving as a guitar player and artist. And Sammy, I think, definitely had a part in that. And, I think part of the, my second reason for Van Hagar being better is Sammy, but it's not necessarily just for his vocals. Like the fact that Alex and Eddie were a fan of Sammy's band Montrose, and that Van Halen had covered their songs during their early days when they were basically a cover band. Which, interesting fact, Van Halen used to cover ZZ Top's Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers. And they actually covered several ZZ Top songs earlier in their career, which I'm like, that's kind of cool. And they were at what I'd like to describe as 1970s cocaine tempos. Like, how can you even play that fast? Like, there has to be some sort of substance involved. Like, that's just not possible. But their admiration for him and his security in himself as a musician basically helped to keep the brothers in check. And some sort of balance in the band, because we'd already seen the brothers starting to exert their influence and all of that when they, after 1984 or pre-1984, they kind of cut Michael Anthony out of the songwriting money, and were basically like, hey, you're just a part of the band, like you don't get a cut of the royalties, which is crap, because their argument of like, well, you don't write the bass parts, Eddie does. Like, dude, Alex really didn't do that much either. Like, he wasn't writing lyrics. He's not, and Eddie started out as a drummer, so it wouldn't surprise me for Eddie to be like, hey, Alex, do this and this and this and this. But he happened to be related to the guy who was the money in the band, so he kept his songwriting credits, in spite of the fact that, like, I'll give Alex credit. Like, he was recognizable. I can't sit there and say like, oh my gosh, he's one of the greatest rock drummers ever. I listen to his stuff and I'm like, it's really busy and he does his job and he serves like what they're doing, but there's nothing about him that makes me go, oh my gosh, he's got to be in my top 5.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to tear down Alex. It's just the facts, you know? But the fact that like Sammy was able to basically walk into there and already have a presence that those brothers were going to recognize actually helped the band to carry through as long as it did. Because otherwise it would have been like just rip someone apart and you wind up with Van Halen 3, which is the great example here of like what David Lee Roth brought in terms of songwriting, in terms of his way of arranging, and Sammy Hagar in terms of his way of arranging. Because then when Eddie was left to his own devices, you kind of get Van Halen 3 where some of those songs are really a mess. Someone wasn't there to be like, hey, let's take this and move this around. And like even some of this, like was it Without You, which was a single off of Van Halen 3, which I kind of like, but even I listened to it and I'm like, I like this song, but it is like 3 songs that probably should not have been, you know, thrown together. So I think that really helped. Like the fact that you have someone walking in who's established and is like, hey, I don't really friggin' need this gig. I'm just here because this sounds like it could be cool. And if you guys are a-holes, I'll just bounce and go do my thing. Like that, there is very much of a like, oh, okay. All right, cool. Well, let's just all do our thing sort of thing. The other thing of like dropping a new person into a band, like especially someone like Sammy, who's an accomplished musician, who can play guitar, who can write lyrics, who has a back catalog already. Like you drop that into a band, now it gives them a shot of energy and also brings new perspectives and new ideas. And you're also like, he's like, hey, cool, I think what you're doing on keyboards is great. Let's do that. And that's why you wind up with more keyboards. And maybe eventually they're like, maybe not so much. And you wind up with where they were on For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, where it's like, let's do it on these 1 or 2 songs, not every song. And ultimately, yeah, he was a better pure singer than Dave. And that's great. But OG Van Halen, it was never about vocal gymnastics. It was, you know, Roth gave the band a distinct sound and energy, you know, of his own, but then Hagar brought his own sound and energy. And it was a blessing in that he was that much better of a singer, because it's a stark differentiation between the two. As you can tell, because when Roth came back, they did no Sammy songs. When Sammy was there, they actually did do some Roth songs, even though he really didn't want to do them. He could do them easily. There's no way in hell David Lee Roth could do Sammy songs. And again, I don't say that to tear down, you know, David Lee Roth. Like everybody's voice is what it is. Like, you know, you look at it now, like even Sammy can't sing Sammy songs anymore. It's like, you know, that was a certain time and space. But yeah, any thoughts on that, sir?
I mean, I think Sammy is the stronger singer technically. You know, I think you know what he brought to the table was the ability to get into ballads, yet also, you know, be able to handle kind of the rocking songs. You know, like, you know, ballads being like Love Walks In, but then contrast that with Best of Both Worlds. You know, like it gave the band, you know, a wider, you know, sort of emotional palette, if you will, to operate in. And, you know, I think that, you know, to your point, I think that's where Hagar kind of exceeds Roth, is that I believe he is the stronger singer technically. Now, Roth is a strong front man. Don't get me wrong. Like as an entertainer, Roth in a lot of ways, I think outdoes Sammy Hagar. But when you get into things like the vocal prowess and range, I think Hagar, you know, exceeds Roth. And so, you know, I don't know what necessarily makes a stronger frontman, but I think it's a mix of both. I think it's a mix of both the, you know, the vocal prowess and also the entertainment aspect. And so,
well, I think it's a good, That's an excellent point. It's what you're looking for, though.
Right.
And
I
Van
think
Halen,
go ahead. When Van Halen was on, I don't remember what year it was. I think it might have been 2014, 2015 when they were on Jimmy Kimmel to promote their album and their tour that they were doing. Roth, that's what I think you were alluding to. Roth, was doing all the showmanship stuff with his baton, and he whacked himself in the nose and was bleeding profusely, and then had to wrap his nose up.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what stood out to me though, and was very, very apparent, was the limited range he had in his voice, because he could not sing Panama in the same way he had sung it before.
No.
Now, Sammy, yes, is also limited, but I've heard him sing. And he was, during COVID, he was posting quite a bit on Facebook and stuff, like little projects he was doing with his band and that sort of thing. And my God, the guy still has the range, and so that stands out to me, that yes. And honestly, the Jimmy Kimmel example is kind of making the point that as time goes on, yes, Roth can be the entertainer, but Roth does not seem to have the ability to maintain the singing. Whereas Hagar, while he's not flashy and performative as Roth is, Sammy can bring a show. He can. How do I say this differently? Let's put it in wrestling parlance.
Yes, please.
Hagar is a worker. Roth is an entertainer.
So if you had to cast the two,
yes,
who'd you say Roth is?
Roth to me is, that's a great question.
Because the first one that comes to me is The Rock.
That's where I was going to go. I think Roth is like The Rock.
He can talk him in the building, and he can do his thing in the ring. But now, if you look at him, he can still talk him in the building.
Whereas I think Hagar is kind of like a Steve Austin or a Bret Hart.
I would definitely go more Bret Hart.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, and I'm not going to, I won't, as a singer myself, I have a lot of sympathy for aging singers, because I'm an aging singer.
Well, and that's the point. It's not to knock Roth. It's just the fact that I think as time goes on, I think, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but I think skill and technique end up lasting longer than just pure talent.
Well, the thing is, it's also how you take care of it, because Sammy has said in interviews, like, David Lee Roth was smoking and doing this and that, and Sammy has taken care of his voice. And granted, he's had more to take care of than David Lee Roth has. Like, it's one of those deals where you look at. I've always felt like singers are a little bit like quarterbacks, and you see the singers from like the 70s, like Roger Daltrey, who are always like almost like a Brett Favre. Like Brett Favre was that whole riverboat gambler, aspect of his game. Like, he could slice those odds a lot thinner because he was just that damn good. But when it goes, all of a sudden, he can't downgrade that. Like, he still thinks in his mind he's that damn good, but his reflexes, his mental acuity, his muscles, all of that are not as good. But his brain still thinks he is. And so in a way, like, it's that thing where a singer goes to reach a note and they think it's there, but it ain't, because there's a disconnect between the physical and the mental. For David Lee Roth, like, he was already performing at kind of that edge of what he could do. And now, like, of course, time marches on. And if you haven't taken care of your voice, which is a thing, like, if you don't take care of yourself, it's going to go a lot quicker. Like, it's going to go for everybody, but it's going to go a lot quicker if you don't take care of it. And he hasn't. Do
you think a more apt example is Roth is more like Goldberg?
No, because Goldberg to me is very much a one-trick pony. Like, he was built, he was this, he was that.
But isn't that Roth? I mean, no. Roth is kind of in a lot of ways a one-trick pony. Like, his solo career did not go well.
Oh, dude, his solo career actually did go pretty well. Like, here's the thing. Like,
there's one album I'm aware of that he actually like.
Oh no! He had Eat 'Em and Smile. He had Skyscraper, and then he also had kind of that comeback in the '90s. The thing is, like, the thing with Roth that
isn't a comeback in the '90s kind of making my point.
Well, no, but it was because he hadn't done anything. But here's what I'm going to say. Like, the thing that's interesting to me about Roth and Hagar is as much as people love, like, oh my gosh, David Lee Roth, frontman, this and that and the other. It seems like there's a lot more people who want to be in a band with Sammy.
Yes.
Than want to be in with Roth. And it's not necessarily the talent. It's because, like, Sammy's a better hang. And that is a thing that I've heard from so many musicians that I've had a chance to work with, is like, the gig is a lot about the hang. And if you just don't like somebody,
it is.
You just don't want to hang out with them. And that's the thing that I look at with Roth is, like, here's a dude who's like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, he's such a showman. And it's like, well, how come he can't get people who want to, like, record with him? How come he can't get people who want to play with him? Sammy's got like 4 bands at any given time.
But I think there's a depth to Hagar that doesn't exist with Roth. I think Roth, I'm not trying to say Roth is shallow, but I think Hagar has...
I think shallow is the best way to put it, actually.
Okay, so if we look at this from kind of a maturity standpoint, like when you look at the songs on 5150 OU812 for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, it doesn't 100% get away from that hedonistic adolescent sort of focus that Van Halen had, but there is an element of more aspirational, emotional, and introspective sort of songs like Dreams, Right Now, Love Comes Walking In. Like, those are not songs that would have happened under Roth. And again, it's not to denigrate and demean Roth. It's just to show the differences between the two, that I think for Sammy, he's got, a little bit going on with, the approach he takes to, his lyrics and that sort of thing. And I think, those are things that as Van Halen was evolving, I think, took them from being kind of the California hard rock party band to being more of a well-rounded rock band. They were putting forth like music that had some depth to it, as opposed to it being kind of the same old, trying to bag the chick sort of thing, which is kind of where Roth operated in. And quite honestly, when I saw him on the Jimmy Kimmel Live thing, that was kind of the vibe he was still giving. It's like, dude, you're like freaking 50, 60 years old. It's like, get over it. You're not 20 anymore. Stop acting like you're chasing tail.
Here's
it's
the
like,
thing that
sorry to say it that way, but I mean, that's what it was.
Well, and I think there's something to be said for like that. Maybe Sammy is just, and again, it's different people, man. It is 100%. Different people and different ways of operating. And the fact is, like, the things that the person that David Lee Roth is got him to where David Lee Roth is. And I can't slag on David Lee Roth for that, because David Lee Roth is safe. So I got to stop saying David Lee Roth, because it's tripping me up every time. Roth has sold a lot more albums than I will ever sell. So whatever. I ultimately feel like Sammy has a little bit more going on here in terms of like his songwriting process and thought process than David Lee Roth does.
Can I give one stat?
Well, one more. Let me complete this and then your stat.
All right.
However, that being said, I friggin' love AC/DC, and AC/DC is the definition of a one-track mind. It is all about tail, and you know what? I will listen to every AC/DC album and be like, sweet. So I'm as Walt Whitman would say, I am a multitude, I contain many. Or however to put it. I'm not a Walt Whitman huge fan, but it's just to say, like, at a certain level, it's just, this is my preference. And in terms of my Van Halen, I want a more cerebral Van Halen that has more colors on the palette, as you had pointed out, to paint with. So what is your statistic, sir?
Well, the fact, Roth may have sold more albums, but when you look at Van Hagar, every album that was made under Sammy Hagar hit #1 on the Billboard 200.
That is true.
5150, OU812 for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge and Balance. None of the Roth era albums ever did that.
Which is remarkable because Balance is not a great album.
It's not. No, and I 100% agree. I mean, I was a fanboy at the time. I thought Balance was great at the time. Looking back with a more measured approach, I mean, I think Balance isn't an awful album, but I wouldn't put it up there with their best.
Now, wait a minute. Was this one the one that had where's the track listing? Because this is
Don't
one
tell
of those...
me what love can do.
No. Okay, so wow, this didn't have Humans Being on it.
No.
So,
Humans Being was strictly for Twister. Yeah.
Which to me,
that was a great song, by the way.
Which is it's amazing that you can have,
and should have been a wrestler's entrance theme, to be perfectly honest.
Oh,
with
dude,
you,
if I could.
Bam, 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 bam.
The problem is
the guitar is incredible.
It would play perfectly as a wrestler's as an entrance theme because you can have that build.
Mm-hmm.
The person gets revealed, you get to the ring, and then when you hit the ring, that shine on, shine.
Yeah,
that is the highlight of the song. Is the friggin' chorus.
Absolutely.
It is all chorus, and the verse is
it's
almost
dark and gritty in the verse.
Well, no, the verse is almost unintelligible. Like I couldn't tell you a single lyric from the friggin' verse. I don't know any of it, you know. But the fact that so Don't Tell Me What Love Can Do. That was a good song. Amsterdam to me was like, and that was a song that apparently was like Eddie had been hanging on to like since like the 5150 days. I'm like, how the hell does that song? Because that song has got such a great hook. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Anyways, where were we? I think we were crapping on Roth while not crapping on Roth.
Well, I think we were just kind of giving the positives of Van Hagar versus the Roth era. You know, so for me, I think it's, you know, I already talked about the musicianship part of it. I think that is improved with Hagar. I think from a vocal prowess and range standpoint, Hagar is above Roth. I think from a lyrical and thematic maturity, yes, there is still.
Oh, there's still plenty of like chase and tail. Like there's, and that was the thing that kind of caught me with like 5150. And let's, dude, the album is called OU812. I mean,
I know.
And then was followed by an album called For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge.
I know.
For those of you who might be a little slow on the uptake or really friggin' high right now, just take the first letter of each word that I just said. For unlawful carnal knowledge. Spell that up on your little speak and spell. And it was led off, in case you didn't get the joke, it was led off by the first song on the album is called Pound Cake. And ladies and gentlemen, lest you think that this is a like deeply layered sort of metaphor, no, it's not. It's pretty much right on Front Street what Pound Cake is all about. So,
and I want to be careful saying that. Yeah. So to your point, like I want to be careful saying that like all of a sudden they moved away from the hedonism because they didn't. But I think what Hagar brought was, like we talked about, I think there's a depth there. I think there's something that is more deep emotionally. You know, he like songs with the band when he's the front man are getting into elements of romance, of love, of you know, relationships that I just don't think Roth was really touching on. Now, to you know, to kind of contrast that, I think, you know, where Roth was, you know, exceeding was around, like I said, he is a charismatic frontman. He is The Rock. He is L.A. Knight. He is the guy who captures your attention and your through his energy, through his charisma.
It feels a little harsh to go with the L.A. Knight. Like I feel like L.A. Knight has a little bit more dimension than The Rock, but maybe that's just recency bias. In terms of
LA
his
Knight
work,
is kind of a combo of Austin and Rock in a way.
But in terms of his work in the ring, like Rock to me felt like so, like I look back now, I'm like, dude had 5 moves. Like I feel like LA Knight at least can work a match a little bit.
I think that's
better.
a little harsh on The Rock.
Maybe
the Rock had more than 5 moves.
I'm just upset with his whole like Elvis Pantaloons phase that he's in now, and the fact that he disappeared and gifted us Travis Scott.
I want to bring out
flaming
a word,
bag of poo. I
want to bring out a word that Wade Barrett has brought out with LA Knight. His Kavorka. The Roth had the Kavorka. I don't know what the
frack is that.
I don't know, but it has something to do with the charisma.
How would you even spell that? Hang on a second. What is
Kavorka? Kevorka. Kavorka.
Kavorka. Oh, it's a song. Kavorka. Okay. All right. Hang on a second. Definition. Hang on a second. This went away from me. Kavorka definition. Is Kavorka a real term? It's from Latvia.
Okay.
So
Dr.
apparently
Doom's
it came
country.
From, this is going to Reddit now here from mobile account 1234. I just watched Seinfeld where they described Kavorka as a Latvian term meaning lure of the animal. Is this at all accurate? The internet seems to say it's true, but it seems rather unlikely. Rasiki,
draw of the animal,
which replies, no, I've seen this asked before. It's a made-up word. Haven't watched the show, but apparently the episode has something to do with Latvian Orthodox Church. They also made up not even knowing such church exists, which would be hard to miss if they ever cared to look up basic facts on Latvia, which, I mean, this was beginnings of the internet, so it wasn't as easy to do. So it's unlikely they ever went as far as to look into real Latvian words. Yeah.
Okay.
Whole episode is fake. So apparently Wade Barrett is a big Seinfeld fan. That's the thing I'm going to take.
No, I mean, LA Knight has used the word Kavorka before.
Oh, he has?
He has.
Wow.
And Wade Barrett was just
Mazel
building
tov.
off of that. So,
all right. So LA Knight's a big Friends fan.
LA Knight was a big
Seinfeld.
Yeah. Yep.
Seinfeld, Friends, whatever.
So Roth, great front man. Again, he was part of inventing that California hard rock sound that a lot of other bands followed. The early albums that
you could say that hair metal was kind of built off of the back of Van Halen. Like that was definitely a springboard.
Yep. Van Halen 2, Fair Warning. Great mix of like that punk attitude, metal virtuosity, and glam charisma.
Yeah. And a whole lot of fracking volume. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that Eddie's guitar sound basically came from just like turning the amp up to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't a lot of pedals and effects. It was just this loud and control.
Yep. And then also
Good
that
God.
Eddie's most, kind of groundbreaking guitar work, e.g. the eruption solo, kind of
tapping,
the dive bomb, harmonics, the tapping, all came during the Roth years. By the time Sammy came on board, he was more refining his style rather than reinventing it.
Well, he did use a power drill.
He did. He found that at least. But that wasn't like every song though. Like that was like a gimmick he brought out for one song. So So I mean, again, I think when we talk about and I agree with you. I think if we were to put this into wrestling parlance, Hagar is more of like a Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, more technically sound, more, he's drawing the fans' attention or energy based on the work he's doing, within the music rather than the show he's putting on. Whereas I think Roth is more like The Rock, more like an LA Knight, where it's more about the show and the charisma that one brings. I know you don't like the Knight one, but I'm trying to think of someone else who brings, more of the entertainment. Maybe it's a Hogan.
You are worse than Hulk Hogan.
I know, Sheiky, but you got to work with me here. You know what I mean?
No,
come on now.
God, please, no.
Oh, come on now.
No.
Michael
God,
Scott,
please, no.
just knock it off.
No.
All right. My third point of contention here.
Yes, sir.
and the third reason I feel like Van Hagar is better than Van Halen, and I feel like, again, and I'm trying, even as I know that we're pissing off Van Halen fans left, right, and center, I'm trying to offer a bit of an olive branch with this by acknowledging the fact that, like, I'm not considering Van Hagar in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, part of the reason that I think that this band was better was because they were playing with house money. You know, they'd had a tremendous amount of success with Raw through the years, came off their biggest album in 1984. And once they brought out 5150 and established themselves with another solid album with another lead singer, something that doesn't happen that often, which the only other example that I can think of would be AC/DC, Back in Black, which is, again, one of these deals where it's like, that is a case study unto itself. The band had a lot of leeway to experiment, and they had a loyal fan base, and it's sort of like Radiohead when they did their what was it, In Rainbows album, and they were like, hey, this is pay what you want online, which was like a mind-blowing experience for a lot of people. It was the first band of any kind of, stature to do something like that, but it was a calculated risk. Like, it's all online distribution, which is not, it's not like you're printing this on a CD with packaging and all that and shipping it. Like, it's literally like, you pay us this money, it's transferred to us electronically, and you get the download, which now is like, happens instantaneously. We don't even think about it. At the time, it was revolutionary, but Radiohead could do it because they had a gigantic fan base at the point. So it was like, even if we maybe kind of don't do great on this, it's not going to kill us. Like, we're not fronting a bunch of money to print up, cassettes, CDs, albums, whatever. It's just one for one. So maybe we lose money on it. Oh, well, they had a whole lot of leeway to do this. And once 5150 was successful, it's like, okay, cool. And you can tell that by OU812 because it is definitely a different sort of album, especially when you listen to, there's definitely a lot of like All Fired Up, Mine All Mine. Then you get into the ballads and all that stuff. But then you get into stuff like, Cabo Wabo, which I was listening to. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so stark in terms of like the arrangement. Like it's a very different song. Like, you're kind of used to a Van Halen song filling up the space, and this is like very stripped down. And then that's before you get into, Finish What You Started, which is like, you listen to the Eddie Van Halen solo on that and you're like, okay, who did this? It doesn't sound like him whatsoever. There might have been like a infinitesimal amount of tapping or anything that's recognizable, but it's very kind of country. Like, and you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell are these guys doing? It's like, oh, they realize we can kind of play around a little bit here, and they were feeling the space. And I feel that then definitely led to For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, which I feel like is like kind of the piece de resistance of the Sammy Hagar era, which is like, that album is a mofo. Holy God, of like different styles of lyrics, of all of it. Like, it kind of led them to that point of like, okay, and now let's do this. So I feel like playing with the house money that they had gained of a fandom, they had that leeway to be like, okay, let's try some different stuff that led them in very different directions that I just kind of resonate with me. That make any sense at all?
It does.
Okay, good. I'm always glad when I make sense periodically.
You do every now and then.
I have my moments.
I think I need to call a timeout now on my side. So
I'm not the one doing it.
No, but I mean, it's like you've taken 4 and I've had like 1. So I mean, let's not like
4.
A 3.
Okay, fine. It's not 4 though.
It's close enough. Damn it!
It's not.
It is.
It is not 4.
I'll be right back.
There are 4 lights
here.
One eternity later.
All right, sir. The next section I have here is lies, damn lies, and statistics. And this is mostly kind of to refute some of the arguments against Van Hagar. And again, I don't want to play this game of like, I need to prove mathematically that, again, it's unpopular opinion. This is my opinion, and your opinion as well. Like, it's not, we're not trying to say like subjectively, or objectively, Van Hagar is like, no, it's our opinion. This is what we like. This is our thing. This is, like what you like. Don't be a dick and let other people like what they like. However, the funny thing is, like, in refuting some of this, it kind of ends up being a bit of an even split. Like if you go down through, like you pointed out earlier, that every Van Hagar album hit number one, whereas that was not the case with Van Halen, with Roth as the lead singer. The difference being that so 7 albums for Roth, 4 albums for Hagar in terms of original material. If you look at the singles, I thought this was rather interesting. The top 10 selling or charting singles for Van Halen as a band, Roth owns 5 of them, and Sammy owns 5 of them.
There you go.
Number one, of course, being Jump. Of course, number one off of 1984, charted as a number one single. That's a David Lee Roth joint. Why Can't This Be Love? Sammy song comes in at number 2 overall. It charted number 3. That was off of 5150. Then next is When It's Love by Sammy, charted at number 5. That was off of OU812. Then we get to another Roth tune with Oh Pretty Woman, a cover of Roy Orbison tune off of Diver Down, which is kind of like a weird album in that, and that ended up having a couple of covers on it. Wasn't that the same one that had Dancing in the Streets, which is weird? I'll Wait comes in number 5. That charted at number 13. That was off 1984. That was a Dave song. Panama also peaked at number 13 on the charts. That was off of 1984. And then we get to Finish What You Started, which is, again, kind of...
Wait, I'll wait. Oh, I'll wait till you...
No, okay, down. Yeah, again, that one caught me where I was like, wait a minute, which... Because that easily could have been off of another Van Halen album. Like, that was one of those...
Is this Billboard Top 100 chart, or is this...
I believe so, yeah.
Spotify chart?
No, this is Billboard, because that was way before their time. Finish What You Started, peaked at number 13, OU812. Dance the Night Away, OG Van Halen right there. That's, I believe, Van Halen 1. That peaked at number 15 with Dave. And again, one of those things where you look at that, and that is like kind of the magic of the early Van Halen with the harmonies and just the great hooks, man. Love Walks In comes in at number 9 overall for Van Halen singles. That was off of 5150. Peaked at number 22 on the charts. That's a Sammy tune. Finishing out the top 10 is Dreams off of 5150. That also peaked at number 22. That's a Sammy song. So 5 for Dave, 5 for Sammy. Like, and the interesting thing here is that, yeah, the majority of the Sammy chart toppers could be termed ballads.
Sure.
Which kind of goes into that more, a bit more emotional bandwidth as opposed to just chasing tail into, just chasing tail until it becomes love. Yeah. I feel like that is in many ways valid, because you look at like how music overall changed, through the 70s into the 80s into the 90s. Like, would Roth have been successful just doing his same old shtick forever? I would draw your attention to a different kind of magic where, hey, we get Roth back. And are any of those songs on this top 10? No. Because I for whatever reason, like, Roth is that's his deal. And hey, that's cool. It worked very well for him. It just didn't necessarily I think it wasn't going to translate forward as well. I think Sammy kind of was a man of the times in there. So if you want to look at sales, David Lee Roth era significantly outsold Sammy Hagar era in terms of total albums. 57 million copies shipped across 7 albums compared to roughly 27 million for Hagar's 4 albums. Of course, you'd have to be much smarter at math to figure out, like, if Sammy had done another 3 albums, would they be in the same ballpark? It feels to me like that's not an unclosable gap. While Roth's era had higher total sales, Hagar's era achieved more consistent chart success, with all 4, as you pointed out, reaching number 1 on the charts. Whereas only one Roth era album, 1984, achieved the top, according to some sources, because, of course, accounting. I think part of the reason that Hagar can kind of get short shrift with Van Halen fans is also because of the way that things ended with Sammy. Like, Sammy departed the band because of management disputes and so on, etc., and left after the album Balance. And Balance was not the strongest Van Halen album by any accounts, and kind of got saved by the fact that Van Halen 3 just was not that good in terms of becoming the worst Van Halen album. But also then the fact that, like, when he went back for the reunion tour, like, Eddie was off the fracking rails in terms of his addiction issues, and of course having to deal with Dave's ego problems, which he's basically said, like, he
well documented.
It was basically like he had to be out of the building before Dave went on stage, that sort of thing. And it's like, you got to feel like this guy is. He said before, like, he would still be the lead singer of Van Halen if it hadn't been for the management change. Which I'm like, I can believe that, because that's a guy, again, like, he didn't need the gig. Sammy could have kept on doing what he was doing. And again, it's obvious that people wanted to work with him by the fact that he's had several bands after Van Halen, and people continue to want to work with him when he's, good God, how can you look up how old Sammy Hagar is right now?
Sammy Hagar? Got to be in the 70s.
I almost feel like he's heading closer to 80 than 70. But he's still got people who want to work with him, because it seems like he's just I'm not going to say he's a good dude because I don't know him, but it seems like he's at least tolerable to hang around with and work with, as opposed to David Lee Roth. Like, nobody's really seems clamoring to work with Dave right now. So I feel like there's a bit of that bias.
Are you ready?
Yes.
You buckled up?
Yes.
77 years old.
Like I said.
Still freaking playing, baby. Still kicking.
Yeah. And sounding pretty good. I mean, he's not in the same key as he used to be, but
no.
Jeez.
Not at all. He loves his tequila.
Well, who doesn't? And he did very
Mas
well.
Tequila.
He did very well off of the tequila. Oh. Very.
I saw him at the Hampton Ballroom Casino playing his Mas Tequila tour.
That had to have been a hell of a show. Hell of a show.
Yes, it was.
But yeah, so there's my reasons for Van Hagar being better than Van Roth. And did you have anything that you wanted to contribute? Because you ran this whole thing through AI.
I did.
And do you have any points there that are salient and prescient?
The only other points are if we kind of frame this, I think from a musicianship standpoint, Van Hagar wins. Mm-hmm. Stronger vocals, more advanced songwriting, greater musical range. From a cultural legacy, I think classic Van Halen wins, more iconic, influential, and revolutionary for its time. Mm-hmm. So I think Roth, from an impact standpoint, I think Roth takes it. I think from a longevity standpoint, Hagar kind of takes it with the musicianship. The evolution of sound, the transition from Roth to Hagar, kind of mirrored the band's maturation, where Roth, the Roth years were kind of reckless youth, while the Hagar years were more kind of reflective and quite possibly a little more adult. What do you think?
Well, I mean, adult in that, you need to be this high and this tall to ride this ride. Yes. Yes. The thing is, I don't want to go too far into there because, again, I listen to 5150 and OU812, and I know for unlawful carnal knowledge like the back of my fragging hand because I've listened to it so many times.
Yeah.
It's not like all of a sudden they were, emotionally mature beings again. We have songs like Pound
Understood.
Cake, all
Understood.
that. However,
Yes.
There was, like you say, we went from a Crayola 8-pack to at least a Crayola 16-pack, if not a 32-pack. And
Little snug.
Even if you went from a Crayola 8-pack to a Crayola 12-pack,
Little snug.
It's still worth mentioning, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there needs to be a little credit.
I want to read this line to you and tell me if you agree with this.
Oh, boy.
If Van Halen with Roth was the party, Van Halen with Hagar was the after party where the musicians sat down and showed how good they really were.
Yes, I would agree with that, because there is that thing sometimes of musicians hanging around with each other, and you hear somebody do something, and you're just like, you would have never pulled that out in front of a crowd necessarily.
Yes.
Like you did that because you're trying to, and it's sort of like the thing where, the movie The Aristocrats, where they're talking about like the joke that, comedians have told forever, and everyone has their own version of The Aristocrats. Like, it's one of those things where you're showing off for the other cats who are going to understand, and in a way, I guess in a way that's part of the reason why I do like Van Hagar, is because as a musician and as someone who listens to stuff, I'm like, I appreciate that. Like, sometimes that little wink at like, man, aren't we just fracking that good? It's like, yes, you are, son of a bitch. Like, I appreciate that.
Let me ask you this. What do you think of this analogy?
Oh, boy.
Think of Van Halen with Roth as AC/DC meets James Brown, raw energy and personality. Think of Van Hagar as Journey meets Led Zeppelin, melodic sophistication and instrumental mastery. Agree, disagree?
In the best of ways, yes, I agree, because I feel Journey does get a hard knock, and I've been there too. Like, it's kind of one of those things where it was cool at a certain point and cool to certain people to crap on Journey. Friggin' hell of a band, dude. And again, sold way more albums than I ever will. And Steve Perry's a way better singer than I am. And you listen to some of this stuff and you're like, oh, well, it's cheesy. And it's like, yeah. And it stood the test of time to the point when you watched Tron Legacy, when they started playing dun, 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 and you hear Separate Ways, you're like, if you didn't get the friggin' fur on your arm standing up, if you didn't get the hairs on the back of your neck, like, it just gets you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And it's very apt comparing, Sam Hagar to Led Zeppelin, because they did cover rock and roll on a couple of their tours. And I can see the similarities between Robert Plant and Sammy Hagar. And actually there's a great, was it Instagram or YouTube, where Robert Plant talks about being lectured by Alison Krauss about singing, where she was like, how am I going to sing a harmony if you're just going off? Like, you need to sing it straight so I can actually sing a harmony. Like, you need to sing this like this, because I can't follow you if you're doing all of your stuff. And he's like, oh, I do? And I'm like, that is the thing about being in a band when no one's singing along to you, Robert. And I get that. Like, there is that element of like, I can do all these things. Like, that's great. No one can follow you unless you rein it in. I feel like I can get the AC/DC to, that primal party power with James Brown, because there is that showman aspect. However, I will say I feel that there is an aspect of James Brown that does get parodied into this larger than life personality that underplays like the musical role that James Brown played in his bands. And granted, no, he didn't write every single part, and he didn't do this and he didn't do that. He wasn't a Brian Wilson, scoring things out. James Brown knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he knew how to do what he did really well. And the example I used was, there's a song on In the Jungle Groove, Sharp Knife, You Ain't Cutting. and the band breaks down, and I always thought it was kind of funny because James does this sort of like vocal sort of breakdown, and there's nothing else playing, and I'm like, oh, he's just doing James Brown things. And then I'm listening to it, I'm like, son of a bitch, he's keeping the beat. He's not losing a microsecond of time. He's keeping time so that when the band comes back in, like he's like, and all of a sudden the band's boom, 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 and I'm like, he kept time for the band. I don't care if he knew whether he was doing it or not. That's fracking amazing that you can do that and do it vocally and in a compelling way that people are like, I want to pay $10 for that album to listen to James do like you're a success. Like, what else do you want? So I mean, yeah, Roth gets underplayed, same as James gets underplayed, but I think that Sammy gets underplayed as well. And I think that they both deserve their flowers. And it's my opinion that that's a better band, but it's built on the back of Van Roth.
Yeah.
And there's no way to avoid that. The same way as AC/DC with Brian Johnson is built on the back of Bon Scott AC/DC. Like you can't separate them.
Right.
Right. It's just what you happen to prefer. And I happen to prefer Van Hagar, that's just my jam. That's my jammy jam.
Absolutely.
And I'll fight you for it.
And there might be some people that look at Van Roth and feel the party vibe, but like as you were talking, I threw on Summer Nights from 5150. And
which is a song that apparently is incredibly hard to play on guitar because of the way the guitar that Eddie used actually allowed you to like detune the bridge.
Okay.
Because Sammy Hagar talks about this when he's on Howard Stern, and Steve Vai managed to figure out how to do it without, because it was a Steinberger. I can't remember. I'm not a guitar geek, but it's a certain type of guitar that allows you to detune the entire bridge, like the entire guitar.
Yes, but
I'm sorry, but
my point is though that similar to Cabo Wabo, similar to a number of Van Hagar songs, there's something about the Hagar era that captures not so much I don't know how to describe it. They capture a mood. They capture a way of, how life was.
Yes.
Which I don't know that Roth necessarily captured. Like there's a texture there that I feel.
I think
with
Roth
Van
very
Hagar,
much captured like the 70s, early 80s.
Maybe.
I'm guessing because I wasn't hyper aware at that point.
I'm just saying when I listen to Van Hagar, I don't know, there's something there that doesn't necessarily exist with the Roth era for me. And that might just be me.
I think it might be just you had to be there sort of thing, because
could be.
The thing is, like, I'm not going to knock the folks who are like who they went to, and honestly, like, I went to see Van Sharon. I am in a weird way, I'm like the person who's like,
sacrilege.
I went to see Van Sharon, and it was a really great show, and I will die on that hill, because when you went to see Roth, of course, and I'm saying Roth, well, actually both versions of Roth, because he wasn't ever singing a Sammy song. You saw Roth, and if that's what you love, that's what you love. If you went to see Van Hagar, you really didn't hear any of the old stuff, unless you went to like the 5150 tour, where they kind of had to play a couple of those songs because they only had one album and then a couple of covers, and they did a couple of Sammy songs, and they kind of had to do some of those. And apparently when he did Jump, he would have people from the audience sing it. Like, he would hold out the mic, that sort of thing. Sharon was the ultimate, like, kind of, I hate to put it this way, because Gary Sharon is a fracking hell of a singer, dude, and a hell of a performer, hell of a front man. Another guy who's kind of doesn't get the credit he deserves. He was the ultimate golden retriever, like, just happy to be there sort of thing. And he was like, I'll sing whatever. Led off the set with Mean Streets, tore into like the Roth and the Hagar catalog. It was like, it was the best of both worlds, because you got everything. He was singing everything, and he could pull it all off. And as much as I wanted to see Hagar, I would have loved to have seen Hagar tour. Man, Van Sharon was a nice consolation prize. And ultimately, like, because I wasn't going to go see, David Lee Roth when I was 8 on the 1984 tour. I'd much rather go see Van Sharon rather than the David Lee Roth reunion tours that came afterwards and hear him half-ass sing his greatest hits. So I feel good about my Van Halen bona fides, if you will. Well, and there you have it, sir and madams. Our reasons why we feel that Van Hagar is a better band than Van Halen. And again, it's our opinion.
Indeed.
If you don't agree with it, that's fine. You can disagree with something on the internet and not let it ruin your life. So there you have it. What is your and another thing for this episode? Recommendation for our viewers and listeners, sir.
My and another thing is Van Halen's OU812. It is, if for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge is kind of the apex of the Van Hagar era, I feel like OU812 is kind of that step toward it. And
yes,
it is, between Mine All Mine, When It's Love, Cabo Wabo, Finish What You Started,
Black and Blue.
I mean, there's just so many good songs on this album that, exemplify what we've just talked about, like why the Van Hagar era is so good. I would highly recommend it. If you have not listened to it, do check it out. It is a quality album, and it is exemplar of the Van Hagar era, if nothing else. So, that is my and another thing is Van Hagar's OU812.
Actually, I think one of the ones I loved real off of that was two of them. An AFU, Naturally Wired, All Fired Up.
Yes.
And then Sucker in a Three-Piece.
Oh, yeah.
Was good, too. But Feel So Good is also really nice. However, it is one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, now we're verging into the cheesy keyboard portion. And actually, one little follow-up to our discussion. How do you feel about the Van Hagar era in terms of, if you contrast that with the synthesizer keyboard era of Rush?
I think, what was interesting was, both, kind of played into, I think, the trends of the times. I think Rush was influenced by what was going on, with what was it called? New Wave, Nouveau, something like that. I think to some degree, Van Halen must have been influenced by that as well to work that in. I mean, when you go back to the early 80s, and it's funny you asked this because, I was talking last night with my wife about how it was so interesting as a kid in the 1980s. It always seemed to me how every year things seemed to improve. There was and again, maybe it was just my innocent sort of view of the world, but it was just always there, in the early 80s, you had Atari, and it seemed like Atari was always getting better every year. It seemed like computers were getting better every year. It seemed like, keyboards and musical equipment was getting better every year. As technology was becoming more understood and was becoming, more mature and evolving. And so I kind of look at, what happened there as, with Rush and with Van Halen and music. I felt like they were trying to follow the trends of the time, which was, I feel like the technology was improving. And so they were kind of following those trends. And so, I feel like Van Halen was a little bit ahead of Rush because Rush was kind of following the trend as it was kind of developing, whereas Van Halen, I think, was getting the benefit of learning from what was already kind of happening ahead of them. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but I feel like that's kind of my perspective on things, is that I feel like they were able to learn from, I think, what other bands had tried and kind of learned from. And they kind of took advantage of that.
Well, it's okay if it's your perspective because it's 11:06 here on the East Coast, and you are watching Perspectives. You know, little to Kaylin,
Thank
for her part on this.
Indeed.
We just need to have her record something like that so we can drop that in.
Indeed.
And another thing is my wife and I just recently completed our I want to say 4th or 5th, maybe even 6th rewatch of Parks and Recreation. And it is one of those things where we finish the series and I immediately was like, I just want to now dive into Ted Lasso again. Like, I just want to feel this optimism and of people just trying to be good people, you know, of trying to do their best and help other people. And like, yeah, they're flawed, but ultimately everybody is doing their best. And it's just the world we live in where that's driven me to that point. But Parks and Recreation, man, just such a great, wonderful world that they carved out. And maybe actually the better and another thing here is the reunion show that they did. I can't remember the fracking name of the symposium or whatever gathering they were doing it at. But it was a panel hosted by Patton Oswalt with the entire Parks and Rec, the main cast plus one of the creators, and it was great because people, you know, Patton Oswalt is just out and out geeking out about this show and his love for the show and the fact that, you know, he got to kind of be a part of the show, and then you realize like oh crap, what's his name? Ben Wyatt. I follow him on Instagram. He seems like a nice dude. Shat. I one of those things where if you hadn't asked me, I would have known. But anyways, he had mentioned like he had watched the show, like he had watched the first season and a half, and then all of a sudden he's there ready to step in, and he's like, I'm there next to Rob Lowe and we're waiting for the PA to cue us, and he's like, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm standing here next to Rob Lowe going on this set of this show that I was watching like last year, and I'm here, I'm like in the show now. And I'm like, yeah, I can imagine how fracking amazing and weird that was. But it is one of those shows that does make me just feel optimistic regardless of what's going on in the world right now, and that there are people out there who want to do good, who want to help others. And it helps, you know, much like Ted Lasso, it helps me to believe in humanity. You know, whatever, you know, flickering candle is still lit. It helps to feed that a little bit. So if you're having issues such as I of believing in humanity, I would recommend Parks and Recreation, because it'll help you see a bunch of people who, as flawed and screwed up and weird as they are all kind of in it together. And we need a little bit more of that in the world these days. What the world needs. Sorry, I'm going to go into a Burt Bacharach tribute. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening and watching. That is our show for this week. I know it's only an hour and a half. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with myself. I might take up knitting after this. But if you want to find all of our episodes, you go to freerangeidiocy.com. You can find us on all the podcast purveyors of your choice, whether it be Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, whatever the hell Amazon calls itself this week, and any other podcast purveyors out there. I have no idea what the international big names are, but you search for Free Range Idiocy. We distribute all over the world, and you'll find us. If you'd like to watch us, if you're listening and you say, you know, I'm a glutton for punishment, let me watch these chuckleheads do this. Godspeed you, sorry bastard you. You can go to youtube.com/@freerangeidiocy. You can find a lot of our episodes there in full HD, 1080p, color video. We don't do 4K because we honestly it would be against the Geneva Convention to have us in that high of a resolution. And mostly because the man they call Tim is such a pretty man. If you'd like to find us on the social medias, we are on Instagram, Facebook, and the aforementioned YouTube. All of those are at Free Range Idiocy. If you have any thoughts, questions, suggestions of what you'd like us to talk about, perhaps you'd like us to talk about the new Taylor Swift album. Maybe we'll even talk about it. Who knows? Who knows? Are you voguing? Is Taylor Swift?
I don't know. What the hell are you doing over there?
I have no friggin' idea. But now it's time for me to turn this show over to the least idiotic of the two idiots who run this show. Granted, it's not a high bar to clear, but he does with a plum and perhaps a peach. But not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history, the forest. My name is Forrest Gump. The first being, what is hip? The second being, what in the high holy hell did we learn this episode, sir?
We've learned the following.
Oh, good. I'm always so happy when there's a list.
We've learned that the man they call Tim, definitely more studied on this subject matter than Uncle Tom.
No! God, please, no!
We've also learned that...
it's all AI, ladies and gentlemen. He fed this into Chat GPT and is passing it off as like some jabroni college sophomore.
I can't tell a lie. I did. Yeah! We've also learned that Khalil Shakir of Buffalo Bills is posting up the 40 points that the man they call Tim has required of him.
Are you... Really?
He is.
Hang on a second here.
He is. How do you feel about that, sir?
How the hell do I get over it? Hang on a second. I need to
gosh, he's got to get over there. He's got to get over there. Hurry, quickly, or you might lose it. Quickly.
You're still 73 points behind.
Come on now.
You're 73 points behind.
Yeah,
Where's Khalil?
You know what? You're losing by 20 nonetheless.
He has 11 points, ladies and gentlemen. He has 11
40,
points.
ladies and gentlemen. 40.
We're 2 minutes.
Don't believe the lies.
2
Misinformation.
minutes and 17 seconds left in the fourth quarter. He has 11 points.
Misinformation. That's all I'm going to say.
You are so drunk on your own Kool-Aid. It's not even funny.
May very well be.
Carry on, sir.
We've also learned, drunk on something else. We've also learned that, from the free range idiocy perspective, we are much more in the bag for one Van Hagar than we are for Van Roth. And it is not to say that the Van Roth era is not important, that is not valued, that is not impactful. It's simply to say that we find Sammy to be just better.
You were borderline going into like Bill Clinton there.
Well,
I just want to say David Lee Roth is a wonderful singer.
I'm trying to.
I'm trying to
be diplomatic here.
More titillating.
Good Lord, the hell was that?
Oh my! I don't know.
God Almighty!
Bill Clinton
talking about titillating, wearing a tank top. I don't know what the hell is going on over there. Jesus, good Lord Almighty!
I kept it below the frame.
No!
Calm down. Calm down, sir.
We had the lights. Oh my! We got a shot of the biceps here. Look out! Good Lord! Now, look at that! Look at that! Look at him pressing up on it too.
This is getting sad. Just
it's the assist.
Carry on.
It's the assist. We've also learned that the man they call Tim is on his way to his first victory in fantasy football this week. While Uncle Todd is on his way down.
Somehow 2 wide receivers are going to get him 70 points. Okay.
That's right. And my defense, they're going to lead me to victory, baby. Victory, I say. Oh, good God.
I'm having so hard not making multiple.
By the way, I've also been drinking a Wild Turkey rare breed.
Did you finish off the other bottle?
No, the other bottle's still here. I just switched it up.
Sweet Jesus.
Switched it up. We've also learned that there are many nuances to the Van Hagar Van Roth. Good Lord Almighty, Van Hagar Van Roth debate. Again, we want to acknowledge the value of both. But we do.
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
We do find the Van Hagar era to be, the better one. So, with all that being said, as we like to close things out here on the show, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The range is closed for now.
I like a Mussolini.
See ya and hello, baby.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
I think you've had about enough.
Well, I think you're wrong, you increasingly attractive-looking woman. You know, you're really pretty.
Oh, stop.
No, I'm serious. You could be in magazines. You could. And not just like Jugs or Creamsicle. Call me. She won't call.
Oh, here's a pleasant sight. Cirrhosis the Wonder Dog.
I'm not drunk, all right? I just have a speech impediment. And a stomach virus. And an inner ear infection.
Damn!
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
So say we all.
Come on, give me a little of that.
No, we're not doing that.
What? You just started playing it. You son of a bitch.
Oh,
God
this
bless you.
No way in hell. No way.
You came from my loins.
Well, that and the fact that you're actually going to, score 70 points on.
I'm going to.
What?
Just come on. Just
You're
stop
not.
it. Just stop it.
You're not.
I am.
No, hang on a second. There is
taking care of business, baby. Taking care of business.
Thing. You're and
what are you doing?
Well, I'm trying to get our outro music here going.
213 to 200. That's where you are.
It's a hell of a lot closer than you are.
All I got to do is get one victory to tie you for this season, for crying out loud. I mean, come on. You've set a high bar for me.
Yes, because I'm 1 in 3?
You are 1 in 3.
And you're 0 in 4. And you're
I'm 0 in 4.
You're the defending champion.
That's right.
You're a paper champion is what you are.
Whose running back has failed him, and now he's suffering the consequences.
Well, his running back is shit the bed is what you mean.
I just said that.
Well, yeah.
He's failed me.
I love how you put that like it's almost like a friggin' Darth Vader. You have failed me.
You have failed me.
All right, let's take it out on this.
Thank you.
Now get the hell out of here!